If learning a language was so easy, then everybody would be learning multiple languages, right? Let's talk today about the truth about learning a language. Hi everybody, welcome back to International Yankee English. I post weekly videos, either videos kind of like this about English or language learning, or live stream lessons for all of my subscribers and my community members from the multiple different platforms where we are active. So you see a wide range of different kind of videos that I have here on this channel. These kinds of videos are personally one of my favorites because they are really broad topics that can be applied to multiple different languages. So today we want to talk about the truth about learning a language. This can be applied to English, but also to any other language. If that sounds interesting to you, keep watching. So the hard truth about language learning that none of my students ever want to hear but have to hear is that there are no shortcuts. There are no easy ways to simply learn a language that you can just download it and boom, it's all in there. It takes work, it takes consistency, it takes perseverance, and it really takes motivation. You have to have the right motivation for learning a language in order to effectively learn it. So that will vary from person to person, and also just your own general skills, how old you were when you started learning the language, what your level of exposure was to the language, whether you're able to immerse yourself in the language in any way, shape, or form. All of those things will contribute to your success or your failure in learning a language. So I want to give you kind of 5 tips, so to say, or just things to think about when it comes to learning a language. Maybe you're thinking about learning a new language, but you're a little bit scared or you're not really sure where to start. This video is a good place to start. Or maybe you've been working on your English for a really long time and you just can't seem to become fluent, and it's just something that's been eating at you and you're trying to figure out, do I even know anything about language learning or not? So we'll talk about that today, and I'll give you some pointers and things to think about. So the first one is that you need to make sure you read in the language that you are going to learn. So that may seem like self-explanatory, that it's unavoidable basically, because essentially anytime you learn a language, there's going to be some kind of writing involved where you have to read something in it. So maybe you're reading a grammar book or flashcards or subtitles on a TV show or something like that. That is always considered reading. But you need to go beyond that as well. You need to read authentic material in that target language so that you can understand how sentences and paragraphs and stories and dialogue, how that's all formed and the context of those situations in your native language. In your target language. It is really important in order to understand the context and the nuances of the language that you are trying to learn. You need to see how it works in a situation like that, not isolated in grammar books or vocabulary word lists. So reading is absolutely essential when it comes to learning a language. You want to make sure that you try to find something appropriate for your current level. So for absolute beginners, I always recommend first start with learning a bunch of vocabulary, because you're going to be consuming so much information. If you try to build a house with just the foundation and the framework, and you don't have all of the bricks or the plywood or the siding or the other things you need to actually build the house, it doesn't matter that you have all of the framework, because you can't really fill it in with the rest of the materials because they're not there. So I think the easiest way to start learning a language is to learn as much vocabulary as you can. Start first with very common words and phrases, and then build up from there, and then start adding in reading at an appropriate level. So there are often books that are written at a lower level if you're still quite a beginner. If you can't find anything for the language you're trying to learn, some of the less spoken languages, that can be trickier to find really learning material where you can find the exact language level according to the Common European Framework, for example. To try to find books that are really set and labeled as that level can be hard in many languages. So what I would say then, if you're quite a beginner, is start with children's books, because those are always going to be easier. Start with reading children's books and then move on as you get better and better. And that will be the easiest way for you to learn how the language works mechanically and what kind of vocabulary is used and what kind of situations. And if you read a wide range of different kinds of sources, you can see how the language is used in different settings. So more formal settings like a newspaper versus a blog versus in a kid's TV show, etc. So reading is extremely important when you're learning a language. You have to do a lot of it and try to do it at an appropriate level for your current stage of learning. Okay, so let's say you're past that beginner stage and you're at a point where you need to practice actually speaking and writing and reading a little bit further. And I think what you need to do at this point is fake it until you make it. What do I mean by that? Just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. Join a room on Clubhouse, for example. It's an app that I highly recommend for language learners, or some other kind of place where you can use the target language to speak to other people around you. It could also be an online course, or it could be a book club or something else. But take the chances to actually speak and or to write, comment back and forth, for example, on a social media post with people in that language. You need to make the mistakes. You need to try to speak or write or read even at a level, or listen, watch TV shows, for example, at a level just a little bit above where you currently are. And that is how you're going to learn. You learn by making these mistakes and by practicing. So just pretend you know what you're doing and try to get over that initial fear and just do it. Just go for it. Speak, write, read, listen, watch, and try to go for the overall context and overall understanding rather than perfection and understanding every last word or using every last word correctly. Okay, so it's important that you just go for it, fake it until you make those mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes. Okay, the third thing that I want to leave with you today is that consistency beats intensity. Consistency over intensity. So you may be really motivated and have a lot of time over your summer break, let's say. So you enroll yourself in an intense language course and every day you're learning tons of English, great. And then you go for, I don't know, your senior year of college or high school, or you go for some other thing where you're super busy for a few months or a half a year or a full year before you really return to using English again. And in the meantime, you're not really doing a whole lot. That short, intense period where you were learning your language is going to wear off after time. So it's better to take it in chunks and do a little bit each day, each week, each month, each year, but be consistent about it and continue learning and improving over time versus trying to do it all let's say 50 or 60 hours a week, trying to just learn your language, studying it and cramming it, and then hoping that everything you've learned in that time that you've managed to remember is just going to stay there. You have to maintain it and keep it up. That's not to say that it isn't an effective tool to get you started, because it can be, and you can go from being stuck for a long time at, let's say, B1 or B2 level on the Common European Reference Framework, and then you do a really intense period of study or course or whatever, and that will take you to like C1, a fluent level, so to say, and then you continue from there, really maintaining and practicing and improving your English. That can get you there, but it's not going to keep you there. So the consistency is better rather than the intensity. And sometimes learners go way too strong and try to set these goals that are just too high, and it's not realistic that they're going to continue at that pace. So then they get discouraged when they can't continue at that pace and they can't reach those high goals that they set for themselves because they simply don't have enough time or motivation or whatever. And then they kind of just stop altogether because they're demotivated. So remember, consistency over intensity. Okay, the fourth thing that I want to talk about today is learning common words and phrases. So when you are a beginner, that's logical. You need to learn the basics. You need to learn the numbers, the alphabet, hello, how are you, and You learn some phrases, you know, like how old are you? How are you? I'm good, thank you. How are you? Those are really logical for beginners, but that becomes less important as you advance. And at some point, it almost becomes irrelevant for certain people, or they think it's irrelevant, and they stop learning common words and common phrases and idioms or collocations. So you have phrasal verbs, phrasal nouns, prepositional phrases, idioms. I generally lump all of those together and I just say phrases or sayings because the actual grammar nature of it isn't so important for you as much as knowing, okay, these are groups of words that are commonly used together, and am I supposed to use these? What do they mean? That is really important to continue learning. So after you make it out of that beginner stage into a more intermediate or advanced stage, you're not going to keep learning isolated words, but you may want to go through and check common word lists to see, do I really know? Is my basic vocabulary actually strong enough for me to reach this? And then you check to see if you really know the majority, not that you have to know all of them, but the majority of those words. I have a bunch of those word lists available in my Facebook support group, by the way. Check the links in the description box. Ask to join it, mention you are a subscriber, so subscribe below, and then you're allowed to join. So you can start there, and then also just try to learn some phrases. Don't overdo it, but follow some pages on social media. For example, we have a phrase of the day every single day, Monday through Friday, that we post on Instagram, and there are tons of other English pages as well. Try to bookmark, like, let's say 3 pages that you really like, and then always write that down, that phrase that they're sharing that day, and try to use it then and look it up and, you know, comment a sentence trying to use it, and come up with a vocabulary notebook and try to learn these phrases as well as the vocabulary words, because if you don't, then you're going to kind of fall out of practice, and you want to understand the things that are commonly used in English, because if you don't, these kind of nuances and the changes, what's trendy and the slang and whatnot in English or whatever language it is you're learning, that starts to fall apart and your fluency starts to go down. Make it fun is my last tip for you today. If you try to learn a language and you're too strict with yourself about it, or you know, you're just doing it because you feel like you have to, it's not really going to go very well. It's either going to take you a lot longer or it's not going to be as effective. So try to do it in ways that you find interesting. Try to find a community like our own community here at International Yankee English, with people that you like, with events that you like, and ways to talk to the people. So for example, a community like our own at International Yankee English, we have rooms on Clubhouse, we have weekly conversation practice on Zoom, you know, we are back and forth in the comments on Facebook and Instagram, and you know, we talk to each other regularly and, you know, use English as our tool to communicate and, you know, build connections with each other. And when your language becomes more meaningful in its use, that's how you improve your level of your English or your language that you're learning. So try to find a community, online or in person, that is based in your target language, whether it's a language learning community or an actual community. Both can work, but obviously a language learning community would be a bit more effective if you are really trying to still improve your grammar and you're not really fluent yet. That would be my advice to you for that. And then by make it fun, I also mean, like, you know, watch the kind of TV shows that you like, read the kind of books that you like in the target language, and don't force yourself to do hours and hours of grammar exercises because, you know, your grammar is not really good if you don't find that enjoyable. Then instead, maybe you really like to play games on like apps like Duolingo or something. Let yourself do some of that so that you don't feel so bogged down by, oh, I have to do English now, I have to do those grammar exercises. Do maybe set your timer, set it for like just 15 minutes, get some of those grammar exercises out of the way, check your answers, check for understanding, And then reward yourself by playing 10-15 minutes on the app, or longer if you want, playing some games and doing something fun where you're still working towards improving your language, rather than just pressuring yourself to improve the grammar. You don't have to always just focus on the weaknesses. Do sometimes the things that you are a bit stronger with, so that you feel more motivated and simply happier about your language learning process. So that's it for you guys today. Sorry to break the news, but other than hard work and consistency, there isn't really a shortcut to learning a language. It is definitely doable with the right resources and people guiding you and support. You can do it entirely by yourself. Even if you're getting support from people, you can still largely self-learn a language. You cannot do it entirely alone. You need some form of, a book and communicating and a back and forth, since language is communication between people. So you can't do it entirely by yourself, but you can, with the support of others and with the right resources and the right guidance, you can largely self-teach yourself an entire language, or not an entire language. Nobody knows every word of every language. But you can really learn a language with the right tools in place. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and comment down below to let me know that you liked it. And I hope that we'll see you maybe in one of our rooms and on Clubhouse, or at a Zoom session, conversation class. And I hope that you enjoyed this video as well. Thank you, and bye-bye.